Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on all major podcast systems and YouTube. Join Denise Bryson on today's show.
Well, welcome everyone to our radio show where I always encourage everyone to drop everything and read. I am your host, Denise Bryson, and I am excited to be interviewing Winnie Winkle. She has one literary book, and it is called "A Walk to Walk in the World," The Walk in the World. And then she has five paranormal romances. But today we're going to be talking about her new series called The Record. And in The Record, there is Boogie Beach, it is Salt Shaken, and Speedo Down. And so we're going to be talking to her about those wonderful masterpieces. And so, Winnie, welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in the Midwest, but moved to Florida in 1990. So I've literally lived here near the beach for the largest portion of my life. And it's been a big inspiration to me. I'm a Pisces. I love water. I'm a swimmer in high school and a lifeguard after that. So I feel like I got my feet wet in writing the books that need to be written.
I tell you, it's amazing. And I was just looking through them all, and I thought, oh my gosh, she's got so much here. And I'm quite sure there's so many more to come. And so I'm just excited to get the opportunity to kind of dig into your books and read about them and all of that, and to see all the wonderful reviews that I saw, because you had a whole lot of reviews and they were all 5-star. And I just said, oh my God, these got to be amazing books. So we're just so excited about that. So tell us a little bit about Cleopatra O'Keeffe.
Well, Cleopatra O'Keeffe is a bartender, bar owner of a pier bar. So a bar that basically heads out across the water. And the bar itself lies on the line between the reality and the extraordinary world. So she basically can see both sides. And her job is to chronicle what happens between those two worlds. And her job is called the Keeper. So could be a very serious, epic kind of fantasy thing, but it's a beach bar, so it is not. She gets into all sorts of stuff. She's dealing with lightning and wild spring breakers and everything else, and all of her magical folk as well.
So she's balancing two worlds. She's balancing the world, the humans, and then she's balancing the magical, as you call it. And so that is what she is doing. So what is the inspiration? What was your inspiration to write this particular book, Boogie Beach?
Well, I downsized my home after my kids moved out and went on to school and their lives. And I thought, well, I've always wanted to live on the beach. So I sold my home and bought a tiny little condo that faces the ocean. And not too far from it is an actual pier bar. So one night I had walked down there to get a salad and a bourbon, and I was watching the area around the bar, and I saw that there was a bunch of hooks on the top, and all of these beer pitchers were hanging on the hooks. And as the waves crashed into the timbers, the pitchers would rock. Slowly, they got to the point where they all rocked in sync. And I thought, that looks like magic. And then I was like, oh. So I pulled out my phone and opened up my notebook and started writing notes. And 2 more bourbons later, I had the start of a book. So I cleared my tab and toddled home and started it.
That is amazing. And so which character now, so when you're developing these characters, how do they start talking, and they just kind of they start coming to life as you write, or how does that go?
Yeah, I'm very character driven. I don't plot my books at all. And I don't even know how to do that, because if I tried to write down a scene sequence, it never comes out that way. But what I find is my characters kind of show me themselves, which was one of the reasons why I wanted to step away from writing romances and dig into fantasy, because then I could take one character and from book to book, I could actually really develop not only who she was, but how she was growing and changing based on the challenges that she was facing. And we all do that. That's life. That's how we get from being 18 to hopefully 78. But I wanted to be able to get that story out, and they tell it to me. I literally just write them and let them show me who they're becoming.
I hear that a lot, and that's so amazing to me, because what it says is that, this character wants to tell their story. And I really like to, like how that sounds, because, it's fun. It's really fun. And so then what is the significance of the series title?
Well, that's the record is actually the book that she has to keep, and she chronicles the line. The first book, without giving too much away, she thinks that's the job. She's just supposed to write everything down. But as she develops as a character and the stories surrounding her develop in the books 2 and 3, she realizes that the record is a lot more than that. So even though it's an inanimate object, it really is a character.
Okay. Oh, wow. And so then what do you hope that that your book, this particular series will bring to your readers?
I hope it makes them laugh, because I laugh all the way through them writing them.
And that's what when reading the reviews, they said, if you want to laugh, you want to read this book.
She tackles complicated problems, and we all do, but she does it with so much humor, and just I'm just going to fling this at the wall and see if it sticks, and if it does, I'm going to charge through. That we all kind of have moments where we're like, I don't know what to do, but I got to do something, and that is literally her life.
And that in itself, helps us to learn how to persevere, because this might be what's going on, but I still got to keep going forward. So it's giving us that I'm going forward regardless of what's happening around me. I'm going to keep moving. And so then where did you get the idea from? But you told us earlier, you were sitting there and all this stuff beginning to happen. And so then the idea began to develop. Did you have any, what personal challenges do you think you had in beginning to write the series? Because you wrote them back to back. One came out in June, one July, and one in August. So you wrote all 3 books in sequence, as far as monthly sequence.
Well, that was hard. I had never done that before. I'd always kind of written a book, marketed a book, written a book, marketed a book, and I wanted to try the rapid release. And I also knew these were beach reads. These are summer reads. If I dropped them in February, what was I doing that for? Exactly. So I was kind of impressed that I could set a fairly rigorous calendar, write good books, and keep it. But that means that I can do it again next year. So I'm happy about that.
And really it seemed like such a wonderful thing to present to the summer, right? Because we were, even though it's summer and everybody's usually out and about, it's still a lot of hesitance about getting out and doing things. And so these books are coming along at a time when people may be in but now they can read this and get some joy to come out of it. So that's good. So tell me a little bit about Salt Shaken.
Well, that's the second book, and Cleopatra has had a challenge that she's overcome, but she's also made some enemies. And because I'm using Greek mythology as well as paranormal magical elements in this, Salt Shaken actually folded in more of the Greek contingent. So she's has a kind of awkward alliance with Hades, and she's tackling basically the creator, Gaia, who has got a reason for misbehaving, but nobody is believing it except for Patra. So she's going to have to figure it out. And Salt Shaken just kind of refers to her moment of turning point, where she's looking out over the ocean and she figures it out.
Good. Now, why do you write in different genres? Why do you think you do that? Because I don't want to give too much of the book away. I want people to buy it.
I wanted to find my voice. And I don't know that when you write your first book, that is your voice. In my case, my first book was my literary fiction, which is this one here. But that was a hard, complicated book. It was in-depth, lengthy, and written as a dual narrative, which is a pretty good chew for a brand new author. And it was horrible, absolutely awful. So I finished it up and I realized that I wasn't mature enough to write that book. So I put it away and I thought, well, I met S.E. Smith, who is a fabulous New York Times and USA Today bestselling author. And she kind of took me under her wing and let me write some romance into one of her existing worlds. So I wrote 5 of them, and I learned a ton. And then when COVID hit, I thought, I've got time on my hands. I'm just sitting here in my house. So I pulled my first book out and I completely rewrote it. And it's so good. Now I love the book. And so I released it and I started Boogie Beach and ripped those through. And I have a wonderful editor. She's actually in Texas. Jenny Rosenblum lives in Austin, and she's edited all of my books. And so she helped me get it together and get it on track and get them all out. And I think now I feel like my voice is most represented in the humorous fantasy, but I like writing multiple genres because I'm a multifaceted individual.
So now, out of the 9+ books that you have written, what is your favorite? Okay. Well, before we answer that question, let us take a break and hear from our wonderful sponsors.
Marianne Fairmouth is a career consultant with 30 years experience in the national recruiting world, a multi-award-winning author in multi-genres, and a speaker that gives presentations to help you succeed. Her book, Revolutionary Recruiting, made the top 20 global list of recruiting books. Find her on Amazon, your favorite bookstore, or at fairmouth.com.
To embrace your children's imagination, check out Diane Floyd Bame's books for kids. There's The Moonling Adventures, all about the animals in the Serengeti. And then there's Harry the Camel, learning to love yourself just the way you are. Then The Little Girl in the Moon. There's one about friendship, another one about the big ideas, which is an inspirational story, and then Tour Tycho Town, right there in Tycho Crater on the moon. All of Diane Floyd Bame's books are available at B4R Store.
Hello, I am the author Denise Bryson. My first book is The Things That Cross My Mind, Inspirational Poetry with Life Lessons. And then my audio book is Love's Reality. And it is also inspirational poetry with a jazzy flair. And then my new book is The Sex, the Lies, and the Soul Ties. They're really short stories written from a poetic expression. And then I have my first children book series, the Blinky series, which the first book is called Meet the Coins, and it is both in English and Spanish. And then the new book From Coins to Bills. I am the author, Denise Bryson.
Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on all major podcast systems and YouTube. Join Denise Bryson on today's show.
Well, welcome back to our radio show, where we have had the privilege to be interviewing Winnie Winkle. And so we have been discussing her new series called The Record, which has the books Boogie Beach. It has Salt Shaken and Speedo Down. And so we've been talking to her about that. And we've been talking about her writing experience. And so welcome back from our break, Winnie. And so could you give me some, what is your favorite book? I was asking that question at the break. What is your favorite book out of the 9+ books that you've written? What is your favorite?
Well, that's a hard one because they're all my book children and I love them all. But I think Boogie Beach is my favorite because I've read it probably 200 times and it still makes me laugh.
That is so good. That is so good. And what kind of characters do you like writing about?
Well, I only write strong female characters. All my girls may be vulnerable. They may make mistakes. They may have rough edges, but every one of them has a solid heart, a sense of good purpose, and they are strong individuals.
And why did you choose to write indie?
Oh, I'm impatient, I guess. I looked at publishing traditionally, and it can take 3 to 4 years to get a book out. And I thought, if I had started this at 30, maybe that would make sense for me. But I wasn't 30 when I started, and I wanted to publish books, so I went indie.
That's good. That makes a lot of sense. And then, how do you plan out to write your books? It says, how do you plan out your books? How do you do that?
I do not do that at all. Actually, I'm a 100%, they call it pantsing. I write by the seat of my pants. I'm a pantser. 100%. I sit down and sometimes I'll look for a picture, especially if it's a romance, I'll look to find my couple. So I'll have a couple of stock images that kind of look like the people that I want to write about. But for everything else, I just start.
Now, what about Speedo Down? That is the last book in the record series so far. So what about that particular book? Could you tell us a little bit about, because now the dragons show up.
They do. Well, I wanted, the second book was setting up a lot of characters that I wanted to incorporate in the third book. But I knew that I needed something that was going to be pretty compelling right from the beginning. And so I went with an antagonist who is basically an anomaly in the magical world. They're not supposed to be able to procreate outside their own races if they're shifter. So wolves can only marry wolves or mate with wolves. But this man is a human, and his sire is a dragon. And he struggles with this because he doesn't understand what's happening to him. The entire magical world is freaked because he's not supposed to even be possible. And Patra is trying to understand a lot of underlying issues that are kind of race-based. But, we're looking at, why are you sequestering or hiding a race just because they're powerful and wonderful? And so she's struggling with some pretty cool social underlying issues why she's solving this problem of this individual. And there's some pretty good fight scenes in that one.
So if you kind of told us who the antagonist was, but who do you think the protagonist is in the story?
Well, it's almost always Cleopatra. She's going to be the one that perseveres to try to figure out who's lying and who's telling the truth. Because in her job, she's not necessarily a powerful person. She's just a human being that has been given this gift to be able to see both sides. But she's pretty spunky. Maybe that's an old-fashioned word, but she gets it done. She's a sassy girl. And so she's a good foil for just about any kind of antagonist.
So now, do you have anything that you've written that you haven't published yet, or you got some unfinished works that you still thinking about? Oh, should I do this or should I not?
Well, I started a contemporary fantasy series around 2005, but I had little kids, and I thought it was going to be a trilogy, again, 3 strong women characters, but I was going to write a grandmother, mother, daughter, a book for each generation. And I just got to the point where I was like, I don't have time to do this. And so I saved the manuscript. I like the concept. I'm not sure I'm writing in that voice anymore, so I would really need to go back and see if I could resurrect it or not. But it was a cool story.
Okay, so we're going to take another break, and then we're going to be back, but we're going to hear from our wonderful sponsors.
Publishing marketing package for authors. A $1,500 value, save 40% now. Includes a 6-piece marketing kit of 250 bookmarks, 250 business cards, 250 postcards, 1 table banner, 1 table runner, and 50 download cards, plus book cover design, ebook creation, PDF setups, upload to Ingram Spark, scroll placement, video commercial, and interview on IBS. Plus much more. Email bourgeoismedia@look.com for details or bourgeoismedia.com.
Hi, I'm Mel Greenberg, author of Running with Our Eyes Closed, book 1 in the Empty Nested series. To the world, Samantha has the perfect life. 3 wonderful children, a loving husband, so she thought, and a life split between Dallas and Italy. When her youngest leaves for college, it all comes crashing down, forcing Samantha to re-examine everything. Over 7 days in one of the most romantic countries in the world, Samantha faces the past she thought she'd overcome and begins to redefine her role as a woman, a wife, and a mother.
What would you do if you had to put your life on hold to care for a loved one? Well, during COVID, almost all of us have been doing just that. I'm Charlotte Canyon, award-winning author, actress, and speaker. And my book, You have to laugh to keep from crying shows you how you can revive, thrive, and survive with 4 golden rules. You have to love one another. You have to respect one another. You have to have patience with one another. And most of all, you've got to forgive one another. I'm Charlotte Canyon, and I approve this message.
Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on all major podcast systems and YouTube. Join Denise Bryson on today's show.
Hey, welcome back to our show. We have been interviewing Winnie Winkle, and she is the author of the series, her new series, The Record, which includes Boogie Beach, and it includes Salt Shaken and Speedo Down. So we have been talking to her about that masterpiece, and it's a good summer read, and well, it's just a good read altogether to make you laugh. So if you need something to make you laugh, you want to get and support her in that series, and get all 3. Don't just get one, get all 3 books, because you need all 3 for the whole story to be told. And so you want to get them all and make sure you support our authors. And so we're so glad to have been talking to you, Winnie. Now you also have a blog as well.
I do, on my website, which is at wwinkle.com. I blog there. I've intersected my blog with Goodreads and Amazon, so it shows up in a couple of different places. And I write less frequently when I'm in the middle of a release, because they already know all about that. They're getting blasted everywhere else. But I don't always just like to write about my books. Sometimes I just like to write about the craft of writing, or just thoughts in general. I steer clear of religion and politics, but the stuff of the world that everybody deals with, I like parsing into that sometimes.
What are some of the things that you feel like is I guess, when you're a writer, what is some of your marketing tools, I guess, that you would give a writer that is starting out, their first book is coming out? And so what are some of your marketing tips, I guess?
Well, you want to build your newsletter. So the first and most important thing you can do is get your website up. Get your buy links at the top, so when they land on your pages, they're right on the book to buy in the format that they like to read in. And make sure that you're capturing those email addresses for your newsletter. Use something like MailChimp or MailerLite or something, so that you've got a way to process that information, so that you retain that information and can send newsletters out to your readers, because you need to cultivate them. They've made an act of faith to give you their email, and you need to show them that you're entertaining, and you put out good material, and you have an occasional freebie or some fun swag for them. And those kind of things build that relationship, and being approachable. They can email you and interact with you on your social media. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter, but Twitter is not my favorite. It can get kind of nasty on Twitter. But I have both a page and a group on Facebook, and I interact on both of those. So if you leave me a comment, I'll respond. I enjoy talking to readers. It's really exciting to begin to see that there's a group of people who actually love your book children as much as you do. And what a thrill that is. It's like creeping up behind somebody on an art gallery who loves a painting that you placed there. It's a great feeling.
Now, where can people find your books?
I'm in a lot of places. I'm on Apple. I'm on Barnes & Noble and Kobo, if you're Canadian. And I'm with Amazon, of course, because I have to be. But I'm also in the B4R bookstore in Texas. And if you order a paperback through them, it ships for free, and I'll send you a signed copy. So that's something you can't get if you go through the behemoth. So.
That's a great bookstore. That's what I always think. And so then also, and you talked about social media. So you're on Twitter, you're on Instagram, you have a newsletter. You said Visit Magic and New Mexico. So that's something that I saw out there as well. Tell us about that.
That's the that's S.E. Smith's one of her romance worlds, and I have 5, soon to be 6 books out in that. There are about 9 or 10 authors writing into that world. So we're using characters that were trademarked by S.E. Smith, but we're writing stories in our own voices. And that's actually worked out very well. And each individual author that's writing into that, I can say that probably about 12 different magic books released a year by different authors, and it gives the readers just love those characters, and as long as we incorporate them into our stories, and it's because they're romances, they're kind of, we're going to want that fun magic, that really happy ending, but you also want some paranormal twists and turns and some unusual situations and characters, and having a group of authors all working toward that end gives the reader an infinite variety to read into a world that they already are completely on board with.
What's next for you?
Well, I have a book releasing November 16th into that's going to be Romer's Candle. That will be book 3 of the Broken Magic series, which is this one here. And that will conclude that trilogy. And then I think I'm probably going to take a break. I live on a boat, and we're going to move all the way around the Florida Peninsula over to the Panhandles. So I'll probably take a month off and just boat. Because with the things I've been doing this year, I published 4 books, a short story, and it'll be 5 books once November rolls around. So that's probably time for me to recharge. The next year, I'm looking at writing into the record series again, and possibly another new romance. I'm not sure if I'll write into the magic world or if I'll try a romance on my own. We'll see what my readers want. And I like to keep them happy.
That is so beautiful. Well, I mean, we have enjoyed talking to you. I mean, you just have a wealth of knowledge, and I always feel inspired every time I do one of these interviews. But I feel inspired because I'm looking at you. You're writing your trilogies, and you're doing it in that way, and so it's just always inspirational to hear others what they're doing and how they're making it happen. And so that's what I've been excited about and to hear. So, what do you have any events that are coming up?
Yeah, I'm going to be at a couple of conferences in the next 6 months. I'm going to be at Books at the Beach in Clearwater, Florida, and that is October 21 through 24. And then I'm going to be at Book Obsessed Babes in Jacksonville, April 21st through 24th of 2022. So I'll be signing at both of those.
Well, that is good. Thank you so much, Winnie. It's been a pleasure chatting with you about all of your written masterpieces. And thank you for taking your time to chat with us and to just share everything that you have shared with us tonight. It's been both inspirational and giving us a lot of tools that we can work with, especially. And thanks for giving us the marketing tips, and we appreciate that. And I want everybody that hears us, remember to support our authors. They are special people to us, and we want you to support them. Go out and buy her trilogy called The Record, and get in there and read it and laugh and enjoy yourself. And especially during these tumultuous times, we need to enjoy ourselves and get us a little laughter in. And so anyway, I'm encouraging everybody to drop everything and read again. And I have been your host, Denise Bryson. Thank you so much, Winnie Winkle, for your time.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for watching or listening to the Indie Beacon Show, produced by Beyond Bourgeois for the Authors Marketing International LLC. Copyright 2021. Voiceover by Beyond Bourgeois. If you would like to be a sponsor of the show, please email us at authorsmarketing@outlook.com. If you would like to be on the show, please complete the form found on our website at indiebeacon.com. You may also watch previous year's shows on the website. Music is Frolic of Words, created for Indie Beacon